Now we'll have two presentations which are dedicated to ERC application and evaluation process. The first presentation will be given by Ms. Elena Volpi from ERCEA, Strategic Support to the Scientific Council. And the second will be presented by Mr. Zoran Petrović, who was ERC member. Please, we will have questions afterwards with everybody. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, now we go into a more maybe concrete, I'd say it's even the previous one were concrete, but from another perspective, presentation. My name is Elena Volpi and I work for the ERC Executive Agency, which is actually the agency, the body that supports the implementation of the calls, and in my unit we also provide support and strategic support to the Scientific Council. I think that I don't need to Okay. I don't need to go again through the basic principles of ERC, because I think we already went through them. We already said the scientific excellence is the only criterion, and that we cover all fields of research, and that we support independent researchers of any age, any career stage, from anywhere in the world, and can be also based anywhere in the world at the time of application. And that host institutions have an obligation to ensure the independence and the independent work and the good condition of work for the principal investigator. That's why they must provide a written declaration in which they engage to provide support. Again, to summarize the types of grants. So we have, as we said already, the grants are divided by career stage. So basically we have from 2 to 7 years after PhD, starting. Consolidators is from 7 to 12 years after PhD, and advanced is from it's basically the senior, the researchers of senior level. Maybe we haven't touched upon the proof of concept grants. This is a different category of grants. It's they are much smaller grants, and the only eligible persons are ERC grant holders, the researchers that already have a grant. And these proof of concept grants are meant to assist the principal investigator to start exploring the preliminary, let's say, market value of ideas that were developed in the ERC grant. And then the synergy grant, we already presented them. And we have also the amount of money that is granted. So it's 1.5 million euros for the starting, 2 million euros for the consolidators, and up to 2.5 million euros for advanced. And for the synergy grant is can be up to 10 million euros. The new feature of the ERC work program 2020 is the possibility to add extra funding for specific reasons. For instance, if the proposal foresee some relevant expenditures in equipment, or and then some extra money, that possibility existed already before, is granted for researchers that want to move from their country affiliation, which is not in the European research area, and they move to Europe. So there is an extra fund earmarked for this type of situation. We have 25 scientific panels, so again, we cover all domains of science, and the number of panels also reflect the dimensions, the size of the respective scientific communities. And the budget for each panel, it's adjusted on, it's demand-driven, which is adjusted on the number of proposals that we receive. So to go through the submission process, basically, as you know, every year there are all the calls are published every year. So you just have to check on the ERC website and you will find the publication of the calls, deadlines, etc. There is only one step submission where you submit all the different information that is required. So basically the submission, the submission package includes Part A and Part B. The Part A is an administrative part. So it's basically it goes through a first eligibility check. So it includes some information on the proposal and the PI, information on the host institution, the budget. Then there is a part on ethics, on the possible ethical issues involved in the proposal. Some specific questions on the call, and then there is this statement of support by the host institution that is necessary to have in order to submit the proposal, which I was mentioning before. And then there is the part B, which is divided in part B1 and B2, which concerns the scientific proposal. So in the first part B1, it includes an abstract of the proposal, if necessary, an explanation why the proposal is cross-domain, so it requires cross-panel evaluation. Then an extended synopsis, so the full-fledged scientific proposal. The curriculum vitae, now ERC encourages applicants to submit a standard model that is, because this allows us to have a fair comparison of candidates. If all CVs are done differently, it's a bit more difficult to compare. The funding ID and the track record. And then the part B actually is the full-fledged scientific proposal. So all this is submitted in one go. And part is submitted, all is submitted electronically. Some parts are compiled online on screen, and some are PDF documents that must be uploaded. So as everybody, many before me said, it's very important to be careful about the timing, because it's better to get prepared in advance. It's not, in terms of having all the documents, it's not advised to do it last minute before the deadline of the call, of course, because there could be any technical problem. And so obviously timing is an important aspect. In terms of the evaluation process, as it is on the ERC side, basically we have the evaluations is done in two steps. So in the first step, there is first an assessment of part one of the proposal, so that only includes the synopsis, not the full-fledged scientific proposal, by remote referees. Then once remote referees have evaluated, done a first review, there is a panel meeting in Brussels where, also based on the evaluation done by the referee, the proposals are discussed in panel. And as a result of this process, the proposals are scored. So there is an alphabetical scoring, A, B, or C. And only the proposals that are scored A will go through to the second step. Yeah, B and C are out. And step 2, again, the proposals that survived from step 1, again, receive a remote assessment and a panel assessment. And for starting and consolidators, there is an interview. So what our grantees were referring to, that's why it is important also to pay attention to these aspects, because of course the oral presentation, the capacity to present your proposal are very important at this stage. Then the proposals that are approved are those that receive an alphabetical score A at the second step. And they are scored, they are ranked, sorry. So you have a long list of A's. So there will be top A's, and then there is, let's say, in order of there are better A's than others. And so they are put numerically. It means that our budget, as it was mentioned by Professor Bourguignon, is not enough to let's say, to fund all A's. So every time there will be unfunded A's, the only A's that go through that are covered by the existing budget are the top, those that are above the budget threshold. And then whatever is then information is given to applicants, either positive, or if the proposal was rejected, there are feedback provided. And I think that one message very important that went through until now was really the importance of keep trying, because this feedback that is given is one of the features that is really appreciated by our applicants. And it has to be said that even if the success rate at the first application can be discouraging, because it's like 11% is really not very high. If we look at the success rate at the second application, is much higher than that. So it's this has to be considered, that again the message is to try more than once. So there are two things that are evaluated: the proposal and the PI. So in terms of the proposals, I don't repeat myself because I think it's quite clear what is rewarded. And for the principal investigator, we are talking about intellectual capacity, creativity, commitment, and capacity to do independent research. And I will not go through this, but these are, if you are interested, if you go to the work program, you see exactly, this is very transparent, you see all the evaluation criteria and how excellence is declined, because excellence in itself is a very big word, but it is declined in different dimensions that appear in the work program that can help to guide the evaluators. Also, the tips, I think you received a lot of tips from our grantees. I heard many times emphasizing the importance of the support and opinion by peers. I think that this is one lesson that we can really retain from today. We can all retain from today, that this seems to be really key, to be able to exchange ideas on our proposal with our peers and or with colleagues in other areas. And of course, it's also very important to have support from our host institution in the application phase. This is another important ingredient of success. I know that in Serbia there is a national contact point for Horizon 2020. I don't know if she's here. Hi. Of course, national contact points are also important resources because they can dispatch information on ERC. So I think it's important to know the person and to use this resource that is available. Yeah, so the tips, I think we had many. Just to say that the Synergy grant has a specific evaluation, submission and evaluation process. So instead of being 2 steps, it's 3 steps. And the evaluation panels are ad hoc. So for each, depending on the type of proposals, the experts are the panel is created with the specific experts for that specific proposal. So it's a bit more complex process. There are some tools available also for help. On the website, on the ERC website, you can see examples of ERC projects that have been funded, which is according to scheme, according to domain, according to topic, which can be a useful thing to do. Yeah, the website already said. There is a video on YouTube, which is a bit old, but I mean, the main things remain valid on tips to apply to an ERC call. Yeah, and then we, very importantly, we have the work program, which is a public document, which really can answer to all your questions. On the ERC website, there are also the frequently asked questions, and I went through them a while ago. They really address everything, even more of whatever I can tell you. So there are all the different aspects dealt with. And here it's interesting information is the timetable of the upcoming calls. As you can see, we have the starting grant call is, the deadline is on the 16th of October. So it opened in July and it will close on the 16th of October. The consolidator grant will open on the 24th of October. And deadline is the 4th February 2020. The advanced grant comes later. It's in May 2020 with deadline 26th of August 2020. And the Synergy has opened in July 2019 and will close on the 5th of November 2019. Then there are different deadlines for the proof of concept because the proof of concept has one submission date and three different deadlines. This is a quotation that I always like. That was an ERC grantee in a conference that had this main message to policymakers: let scientists follow their dream. And he was making this example of the Al-Khwarizmi, I hope I pronounce it well, who couldn't know that his research would lead to the invention of the algorithm. So just let scientists free of do what they want, and this is the big, the major ingredient of success. So this, I kept it short, I hope, just to see if there are questions, because, yeah, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Volpi. Now I would invite Mr. Zoran Petrović to give us his presentation.
Good afternoon. My idea for this presentation was to give you a number of tips that could help you in preparation of your proposals. A lot of those have been actually provided by previous speakers, and I will rush through some and go into details on some and open some things which may be regarded as controversial. Anyway, I've been member of PE2 panel for 8 years. Now that I'm out of it, I can freely admit Before that, I had to hide the information. And that was one of the nicest experiences in my life, because I think I learned more from ERC grants and from the process than from anything else in the last 10 years, which is fantastic. Just listening to the previous presentation, I remember that a friend of mine from one of the panels earlier on just got his third senior grant this spring, deep in his retirement. I think it's fantastic. Now, there is a difference between him and me. I have none, and maybe it's associated with the fact that I never applied. So my first advice to you is, if you want to win lottery, buy the, then there is beep, 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 ticket. So please try. Deadline is close, I will never make it. You will submit it next year. There is no excuse for not preparing the proposal. Anyway, another advice. Funds to different sections are allocated. Oh yeah, just, I have to go back. That guy was from Barcelona. He's Polish, but he's in Barcelona. And maybe with those two lovely ladies from Barcelona that were so successful, advice could be go to Barcelona for some time, breathe some air. And I'm sure that Magdalena was in Barcelona for some holidays when she was preparing her proposal. Anyway, oh, how can I, okay. Important thing, our panel had much less money than in previous years because people did not apply. We didn't have enough proposals to maintain the same level of funding. At the same time, we had the same number of excellent proposals, which made it more difficult to assign funds to the excellent proposals. Please submit your proposals. You know, I know that you will consider it waste of effort, but you are contributing, if you fail, you are contributing to your overall field. This may be controversial, but anyway. Okay, first question, who are you writing this proposal for? There are 15 panel members, at least that's my experience. Two different teams, one for odd and one for even years. All of them are experts in their fields, no question about it, high achievers, and also they know a lot about just about everything else in the general field. It's more difficult in these panels which cover a lot of topics, but in physics, people are generally educated, but they don't know everything. So, and especially in these novel multidisciplinary things, it was very hard for me to sell application, just something that was presented here, application of many-body theory and statistical physics in medicine as physics to my panel. But after we succeeded, that lady was #1 in ranking. So they are all meaning well, they are all kind of stubborn, and it takes a lot to persuade them, and you have to give them good arguments. So they are not all experts, they have some preconceived notions. You have to work towards breaking those preconceived notions if you are presenting something that is thinking out of the box. And that is the best strategy to win. Okay. There are, in the first step, there are very few external referees. So your proposals are assigned to the members of the panel. And typically 5 of them evaluate your proposal. Those 5 will give you their grades, and then towards the end, 1 will be principal reviewer who will summarize everything presented, give his suggestions, but also all of the members who have reviewed will have to speak, and also all of the members of the panel who wish, they can also voice their opinion. Be careful. There are 200 to 300 proposals typically per panel. Just to write a good report, it takes a whole day. It took me a whole day per report just to read and write my review. So actually, most of the members of panel will read only what they were assigned to review. And their participation in the discussion in the first segment will be based on what others say and their general knowledge of the field. They may check your abstract and beginning, and this is where you have to sell your proposal. You have to attract attention early on, in title, in abstract, in the initial or in concluding segments of the proposal. You cannot expect people to read 200 proposals, typically 30 pages, within 1.5 months, and live their lives in parallel. That's impossible. Okay? Let's proceed. So how these questions that we get, we just got from Elena, actually, good summary of this. We are asked, sorry, this is beyond my, I don't know whether I cannot read this, I cannot turn around there. And don't prepare your slides for your presentation like I did. They shouldn't be too busy, it should be more interesting. Anyway. So, okay, let me go upstairs. There are 2 segments, each given 3,500 characters for reviewers. There is a lot of overlap. Although in Elena's presentation it looked clear-cut, but when you are a reviewer, you don't know what belongs here, what belongs there. And basically, I advise you, important things should be repeated. Don't worry. If you have to stress in one segment high risk, high gain, and in the other what is the contingency plan for the high risk part, repeat aspects of high risk. It is very important. First, scientific excellence and cutting-edge science, whatever that means. In physics, it's well defined, unfortunately, and it's burdening physics to some degree because it's narrowing the scope of preferred projects, but that's just my opinion. In other sciences, it's more difficult to define. And basically, you have to prove to these experts that you are doing high risk, high gain research at the cutting edge. No risk, high gain research will not be funded, believe it or not. This is something that your government should do. That's what officers of ERC told us. This is what your government should do. If it's no risk, it's no-brainer. Yeah, we are funding something that will surprise everybody, come out of blue and surprise everybody, and be a major achievement. That is what is projected to us as what is, say, underpinning of this whole endeavor. So don't be shy. Say what is the cutting edge, supported by publications. Don't say this is frontline research. Say This part of physics is, or whatever, is at the cutting edge of the science at the moment, and we are trying to contribute to one aspect of that, and supported by specific references in renowned papers, well-known papers, something like that. That is a very important aspect. Again, when you discuss high-risk part of your proposal, make sure that you have some kind of contingency plan. What if everything fails? You will have another option. If you cannot manufacture this, if technology doesn't work, we can do it differently. And make sure that you prove that you will have sufficient amount of support to your main line of research wherever circumstances take you. Now I'm speaking like a true experimentalist. Theoreticians have it a little bit easier there, but still it's not absolutely certain when they plan that they would actually still achieve it. Basically, I have reviewed some 200 or 300 proposals, and I still don't know what I should put in the first box and in the second box. And I developed my system. I don't know whether it's best or not, but it's best to follow, and Elena gave you good guidance there, better than I have here, to follow these items, even though there is some repetition. I was trying to avoid repetition, and then I was running in danger of not being comprehensive in one box against the other. I was limited to 3,500 characters. There I had to list a lot of things from your proposal. I had to give main points of your proposal, main supporting items from your proposal. It is not easy to do. I will return to PI later on. Let's proceed with evaluation of the proposal. You should have good balance of material that you put in, of complexity, and of structure. I had once proposal that had 6 pages of text without any titles, without any bold letters, without any lists. And within those 6 pages, I had to find the main objectives. And you finally find 3, and you make a list, and suddenly you find the 4th one. And you find the 5th one later on, and then you don't know whether you found them all. And that is difficult. Please use cut-in lists. You have your text saying this and that, but you just put a list and saying main objectives, / this, and that. Main principles that we are going to use, main steps. Make sure that you summarize things and you have structure of the proposal, so that if I'm reading your proposal, I know that I'm reading introduction, or I'm reading your main proposal, or I'm reading your contingency plan, or whatever. Make sure that you clearly spell out. I know that you won't have enough room. You will use, I don't know, 8, 9-point font with 0 spacing, so that people like me need binoculars to read. But even there, it works in your favor to help me read it, because if you reduce a little bit of material but make it more readable, it will work in your favor. Make it easier for report to be precise, accurate, comprehensive, and in your favor. You will not enrage your reviewer by when he's not able to find things, he will just go into, wow, this is a bad proposal. You don't want that. Okay. As I said, you can use bold letters, colors, larger fonts, little lists. We say in Serbian antrofile from newspapers. You can put all these things in. You have to have good balance of figures, not too busy, not too few. And anyway, whatever you can present by a figure, please do. It is always better. Okay, and remember, reviewers have limited amount of time. Help them use it to your advantage. And basically, to help yourself, I mean, you are doing yourself the biggest favor by helping the reviewers in the review. But in general, I would advise you not to have 15 main points and main results. Group them in 4 or 5 groups. Don't have 20 steps. Group them, focus them, make it more readable. Let it flow more easily. As I said, repeat things if you need to. And, well, try to think outside the box if you can, but not too far from the box, because then you have a lot of explaining to do. If you go too far, then there are always questions. Is this physics, or is it cardiology, or is this whatever? So you don't want these dilemmas when you submit. If you decide on a panel properly, then you don't want that panel to have dilemma whether your proposal belongs there or not. Okay. I've been through this. And now PI. This is the most, let's say, colorful thing in evaluation. Each and every proposal deals with it differently. Basically, what you need to do is to support these questions. Now, you are given a grade, 1 for the first step, 0 to 4, and 1 for PI, which is, again, 0 to 4. These sort of rankings of different things, different aspects of PI's personality are also graded, but they do not contribute to ranking. They're just there as a reminder. Is that person excellent, outstanding, or whatever? To what extent has PI demonstrated ability to propose and conduct groundbreaking research? To what extent does PI provide evidence of creative thinking? How can he propose groundbreaking research without creative thinking? These are all very strongly overlapping items. Try to give specific support to each and every one of them. But basically, this all boils down to number of papers in high-ranking journals. If you have high H, put it in big letters. If it's not so high, should be there, but not in such big font. If you have a lot of papers, and you can only list few of them, say that, yeah, this is just a selection of papers. If you have only papers enough to fill the space that you have, then you don't mention these things. You put them in. It is often said that it's important to have papers without your supervisors. Whatever is said as a very important thing, and this sort of something that may discriminate against you, is usually something that is being used when people want to decide against your proposal. If they want to support your proposal, nothing will be a problem. And now ERC people will hate me for saying this. I have proven to my panel that evaluation of PIs were usually strongly connected to evaluation of the proposal. So a person with 20 nature and science papers, but with poor grades for the proposal, got poor grades for PI. And the person without any science and nature papers, but with good grades for proposal, got good grades for PI. There is some inertia in minds of reviewers that I've experienced. I'm not saying that is a rule. I'm sure that ERC would not like that to be so, but it happens. We are only humans. And when people are carried by the proposal, they try to do everything to support it, and their criteria change accordingly. So don't worry about your number of papers, your science or nature papers, your papers without your supervisors. Put your papers in, put your best research in, try to prove that you were the leading author, that you led projects, that you managed large proposals and large funds, that you managed students, that you did presentations at conferences, that you did complex administrative stuff, like led society, organized conferences and things like that. That all adds to the overall picture which is being discussed. References, again, you have two groups of references, which to put your references and references supporting your proposals. I will not give you any more on that. For interview, I will be brief. Speak relatively fast, but not too fast. Speak clearly, and don't be shy and quiet. When you respond to questions, start responding immediately. Don't hesitate. And believe me, you will have questions which will may be surprising to you because people do not appreciate things the way you do. People may not understand that this belongs to that field, that this is right. Try to project your arguments to the general education and knowledge of all panel members, not one which knows about that stuff, but also everybody else, to prove that it is cutting-edge science, that it belongs to the panel, that it will bring high benefits if, after a lot of risks, it is achieved. Stick to the time. It's frowned on extending your talks like I did. And basically have nice slides, not too busy, with nice combination of large font text and nice figures. And basically then you will be put in ranking. If you are A, you will either be funded or be able to apply next year. If you are B, you have to wait 1 year. If you are C, you have to wait 2 years, and that may make it actually impossible for you to apply, at least in the same category. So you have to be very careful to check your options and try to go as far as you can up in the grading, even if you do not receive funding. And also, there is always hope. If you are just below the list, there are some projects which are not signed. There are some projects which have some problems, and then the list is moved 1 or 2 projects downwards, and usually 2 or 3 projects that were below the line get on the list. Anyway, there are many questions which I will leave to you to ask me. I wanted to open them, but I don't think we have time. And with that, I will just give you a wish to have good luck and to buy the ticket for the lottery.
Thank you, Mr. Petrović. Now we have some time for questions. So please also address to whom would you like to have a question for.
My name is Radomir Sajčić from the Faculty of Chemistry, and my question is directed to Mrs. Volpi. Concerning the schedule, if I noticed well, starting and advanced grants are already, so to say, finished. I mean, in July this year, it was the time for applying for starting grant, and then in October for consolidation. So it's only, if I'm right, for the advanced grant in 2020, next year, will be made a call. At least that's what I noticed at the schedule table.
No, some calls are still open. Oh, does it work? As I said, for the starting grant, it closed on the 16th of October. It's quite soon, but the call is still open. Okay. The consolidator grant is still open. The deadline is the 4th of, it will open actually in October. So this is a call that still has to open. So October 2019. Which is in the next month, and then the deadline is February 2020, and then the advanced grant also will be open in May. So there are actually one call that is close to the deadline. The other 2 will still have to be open in 2020 and they are still accessible. And Synergy also will open in, Synergy again, it's already open and will be closed in November 2019.
Okay, can we anticipate a little bit in the future? I mean, do you have some idea when next, so to say, list of calls will be open? Or?
I think Jean-Pierre maybe has a better idea.
Yeah, we anticipate some delay actually in the launch of the next framework program. So we already organize ourselves. It will be public soon. That actually the call for 2021 will probably be shifted sometime. We cannot open a call until the budget is voted. And last time for Horizon 2020, the budget was voted in November 2013. So we couldn't start the calls before November 2013. And then for obvious capacities of the scientific officers, you've seen that they are basically called one after the other so that we can spread the evaluation over the year. This has to do with the availability of rooms. It has to do with the ability of the staff. And so for 2021, we already anticipate that we probably will face the same situation as 2013 or 2014. And therefore that probably there will be a delay in opening. It depends very much how the negotiation with the budget go. If they go fast, which we are not so sure, then we can be in a normal year, that is with typically the spread that has been presented, that is starting grants closing in October, the consolidator closing in February, and the advanced grant closing in during the summer. We are afraid that 2021 will not be like this. And we already anticipated, prepared for that. Because you see, why do we have to prepare so long a time, so long in advance? The panel members know 2 years in advance exactly when they will meet. So if you want people to reserve in the agenda that they are available for evaluation, you need to tell them 2 years ahead. And therefore, you better not tell them that, I'm sorry, we have to change the date a few months before they meet. That cannot be the case. So this is the situation. So in a sense, the calls for 2020 is perfectly clear, as Elena said. And then 2021, there's a big question mark, not under our control. And therefore, we are cautious, and we just already prepared for pushing.
Many thanks for this information.
Mirjana Ljubojević, Faculty of Agriculture from Novi Sad. Question is for Elena. As you have presented, the call for consolidator grant will be opened in October, and it will be signed and funded in 2021. So my question is, what happens if in the meanwhile somebody from Serbia gets funding from Science Fund of Serbia and gets funding from the consolidator grant? Is it in collision, or someone can have both fundings? Because we don't know if we're going to be funded from the Science Fund of Serbia. It will be ongoing open calls. And what happens if we get funding from two sources?
I don't think that these funding are incompatible. I mean, on the same project, okay. Yeah. No, I mean, I never heard that there was a problem for a principal investigator to have other sources of funding especially if it's another project. I mean, but are you talking about the same project? The same idea?
If you received a project, a grant from a national funding agency, just after that from ERC, you have to take the decision. Which one are you going to conduct? And you fairly say, I'm resigning from, say, national and taking ERC, but not double funding. Yeah. If it is the same, of course, if you have different topics, different proposals, you can do them if possible. You know, there are some time constraints. You know, the day has 24 hours. Yes,
but also given the different amount of the grants, because we are talking about really different amounts of grants. So I doubt that the project would be exactly the same. I mean, you cannot have the same scale of project, of ERC project funded with the National Science Foundation, if I understand about the size of the grant. So in theory, I think it's not very, it shouldn't happen.
It would be the same amount of money, the same extent of the work, but if the idea, the core idea is the same, what happens in that situation? That was my question, because it will be in the same time, the proposals will be opened at the same time, and what if the core idea and the core work that is going to be conducted is equal?
You should pay attention to your commitment to the project. Even if they're quite different, you need to have at least, I think, 50% commitment to ERC proposal. Yes. And then you have to work out with government what kind of commitment you have to have. Now, the most difficult issue is because you will have teams with several different authors, each acknowledging their funding, and that is a gray area that I don't know how ERC resolves, but whether it can be done only within ERC and what counts in supporting ERC grants. But watch out for the commitment if you say I'm committed 20%, you will not get a grant, even if the best proposal is given.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Aleksandra Smiljanić. I'm from the School of Electrical Engineering, and my question is how multidisciplinary projects are evaluated. For example, in ICT and humanities, what would be the procedure? To which panel it should be submitted and how it's handled later?
In the proposal, there is a part which is dedicated to cross-panel, cross-domain or cross-panel proposals. So the interdisciplinary proposal are, in this case, they are experts from different panels that are, let's say, invited to the main panels to provide the perspective from other disciplines. So there is no specific interdisciplinary panel or interdisciplinary earmarked fund, but it's done by borrowing experts from other panels. And it is, it should be actually positive. Interdisciplinary projects are it's a positive thing to have an interdisciplinary project. Then, how this is efficiently reflected in the evaluation process is a challenge that we are always trying to address, to do it in the best way, because sometimes it's not easy. You want to add something on interdisciplinary?
If you choose your panel either in humanities or in information science, then make sure that you try to project what is being done onto the knowledge base of the people who are going to evaluate you. That was my point in presentation. Try to translate it to their experience and their knowledge. So proposals would be different, although the main idea is the same. But I think you can go both ways and apply to either of the two panels.
Marko Đorđević, Faculty of Biology. I have one question for Natasha. So you got starter grant first, and then basically immediately you got consolidated grant. So my question is, in your experience, was it harder to get consolidated grant once you already had an ERC grant, or was it the other way around? Was it easier? At some point you were mentioning that you had to argue that it's something very completely different from the grant that you already had. So.
Yes. It is harder. It is harder because Europe views you as having had perhaps an unfair advantage over people who haven't had an ERC starting grant. So you're put under much stricter rules and you're really looked up a bit differently. Of course, I mean, it is normal that you have to demonstrate that it is different, how it's different. You have to have completely different ideas, approaches, and things like that. But it is harder. Yeah. On the other hand, I mean, you have done a lot, right? So in a way, you have developed more than perhaps an average person in Europe can. So it's definitely an advantage, but that was my experience, yes. Yeah, go ahead.
Give you statistical data. So presently at ERC, the success rate average is 13%. For people who had the grant, who are about to getting a second one, the success rate is close to 30%. So you can feel it's much higher, but on the other hand, it means that more than 70% of them don't get funded. So still, it's not so generous. But it's true, I think what you said is exactly correct. Since people had a priori good conditions to do their work, you're expecting from them really to come up with truly new ideas and to really show something good. So that's the statistics. Of course, at the moment, we don't have statistics for people who got 3 grants, because I think at the moment we have 4 people who got 3 grants, I think. That's, so no statistics on that.
My name is Alexandra Tubic. I'm from Faculty of Sciences from Novi Sad. I have a question for Elena because we are doing in the same field, wastewater and drinking water treatment. How you were sure that you will realize all the project with people you had? I see your team is bigger and bigger each day. So how you were sure that you will have enough people, enough competent people to realize all the tasks in your projects? Because for the people who are theoretical, okay, you can do by your own or 2 or 3 people, but for our research, we need much more people.
Well, I wasn't sure at all. I mean, I had a lot of...
How you explain that in your proposal?
No, of course not, but I had no idea what was waiting for me. I mean, that's why I think you have to choose your project very wisely, because potentially you may be stuck with it for 5 years. So for me, actually the biggest challenge, I mean, finding students, I found good students, but finding, for example, a material science expert with knowledge in graphene, they don't want to change field. They don't have to, because environmental science is simply not as sexy as battery supercapacitors, and you can see you know, the impact factor of journals is, of course, lower in comparison. Not that it's easier at all for us to publish. It's not. No, it's a very strict, strict science, with a lot of scrutiny. You can't just pass your water through anything and ignore, I don't know, you have to have a complete picture. So it was, in that sense, it was difficult. I got lucky. I really got lucky with my postdoc stuff. I mean, I got 2, and I'm quite happy. But yeah, it's a challenge.
It's, okay, thank you. Yeah.
Hello once again, Nenad from Faculty of Sciences, Novi Sad. I would like to ask you, do you have any IP positioning in the ERC grants, and how are you dealing with the intellectual property in general? Perhaps Elena or Natasha can give us the answer, because you can actually get a product or something that can be used after the grant. Intellectual property, how are you sorting it out?
Yeah, well, we are, I mean, one of the reasons why it took us also so long well, it's taking us a bit longer to publish the data is that because we are planning to patent some of the best things that we have. Yeah, I don't know, I'll tell you about it. Actually, my plan is to, well, it hasn't been talked about so much today, ERC proof of concept grants. They are kind of, as far as I understand, good grants to kind of try to translate your findings, maybe a patent, into real life, maybe connect with industry exploitation and so on. So, well, I plan to apply for one of these, but I have no experience yet whatsoever. But I believe it's very important to have institutional support. Like within your own research institution, to have somebody who actually has experience with not only, I mean, patenting, from my point of view, if nobody's going to use that patent, I don't know. I'm a little bit not really too keen on patenting something, spending about 15,000 euros, and then it just sits there. So it's really about trying to commercialize, I think, your IP.
I can add that my experiences have also been fairly limited so far, but now there's actually huge industrial interest, and I'm being approached by, from many sides to do 2 or 3 possibly startups. I'm having some very productive conversations with my host institutions, both Barcelona Supercomputing Center and ERCEA. It's in the beginning, and actually I would like to turn that question back to you guys. My understanding is that you guys are not expecting any portion of a startup to be yours, but the host institutions will, for instance, right? Is that correct? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I think this is all very positive. I mean, this is what ERC is for. I mean, it's encouraged. It's a good thing for science to get directly into industry. and the host institutions are also very happy about that. But I can tell you more about that perhaps in a year or two.
Thank you for your presentations and for a lovely discussion.